kind of was like here, and it wasn't until my grade 12 year where I was thinking I was going to go to Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick, and I was going to go be a teacher. And so that was the
What kind of
the
teacher
road
did
on.
you want to be?
No idea. Probably gym teacher.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Probably a gym teacher. Welcome to You Belong, the podcast where stories come to life, hosted by Pastor Nate. In each episode, we'll learn that every name has a story, and every story matters to God. So let's journey together and discover the stories that unite us all. This is You Belong.
All right. Well, I am so glad that my friend, my coworker, my boss, all of the above with me today on the You Belong podcast. Geoff, I think we're going to do something a little bit different today. I don't need to hear about how you became a baby and where that came from. But I would love to hear, and I think everyone else would love to hear too, like, how did you become a pastor? Like, how'd that all go down?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a long story, but I love this platform, and I'll make a deal with you. I will share some of that, but I think we would love to know some of your story too. Our stories actually intersect a little bit too, and so I think it'll be fun. So if you're game to share some of your story,
I'm down.
then I'll share some of mine. All right. Well, yeah, let's get into it. For me, it was really the highlight reel. It was in high school that I never dreamt in a million years that I'd be doing what I'm doing now in high school. That wasn't a thing, but I was growing in some leadership opportunities. My church was investing in me. I was involved with, a really good friend of mine that really said, hey, it's normal to be in church. It wasn't like this add-on thing that you went to school and then you did church over here. It was like, it just was, a regular part of your day. And so I got to watch a community really normalize what it meant to really serve the Lord and be in ministry. And I got to watch different pastors throughout that time kind of come and go, and it kind of was like here. And it wasn't until my grade 12 year where I was thinking I was going to go to Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick, and I was going to go be a teacher. And so that was the road I
want to be.
No idea. Probably gym teacher. Probably a gym teacher. And so that was my journey. I was going to do that. And I didn't know quite. I mean, I don't know how many grade 12 students actually know what they want to do. But for me, I was like, that's kind of moving that direction. And my friend said, hey, why don't we go to Bible school for 1 year, get a better understanding of what the Bible teaches, and then unpause.
From your church?
Yeah, from the church. And he played a big role in my life in grade 9 to really say, hey, come on out to youth group, come be part of it. In high school, it was like, hey, let's run VBS together, and gave me leadership opportunities. And so I was like, okay, I just kept saying yes to stuff. And I think if I could sum up my journey, I said yes to opportunities. Because when the easy road appeared, it was like, yeah, I could do that, but I don't think I'm really going to go much further if I just, say work at Irving, there was an opportunity to work at Irving for a summer. I was like, I always want to kind of...
Was it planting trees?
No, but I was up at Bald Mountain putting out forest fires. I actually didn't put out forest fires.
You put out one?
No, the forest fire was already put out. We were basically taking hot spots. And so we had a backpack of water, and we would push the water out, and anything that was glowing, we had to stop it from glowing. Okay. And real quick side story. You ready for this? Okay. Yeah. So we're out in Bald Mountain getting paid for like 2 weeks for the summer. And we're putting out all these hot spots. And it was the last day after 2 weeks. And all we ate every day was bologna and mustard.
I love
That's it. I didn't like mustard at all. I eat mustard all the time now because my taste buds just had to. But it was like, yeah, cooler bologna and mustard. Tomorrow, bologna and mustard. Sandwich. Yep.
Sandwich. Oh, yeah.
Yep, sandwich, bread, bologna, mustard.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
So that's what we ate every day. And so the last day, they're like, we got to keep going deep into the woods. And I was like, okay. And I just said yes to like, okay, I guess that's what we'll do. We went so deep in the woods that the supervisor, satellite phone, called and said, hey, you guys got to make your way back out to catch the bus and get home. And the guy that was supervising us on location was like, we actually are so far in the woods, we can't make it back for the bus to leave. So they called a helicopter.
Stop it.
They called a helicopter to fly out, pick us up, maybe 2 people at a time, because it was a small little helicopter, picked us up, flew us to the bus, went back, picked up to the next group, flew us back. And you want to talk about scary? that was scary.
So you get a helicopter ride to get back to a bus.
Yep.
How old were you? Say?
In grade 11, grade 12.
That was wild.
Yeah.
That was-
And it was all glass. And so you're looking down, seeing trees underneath
I don't
you.
want to see that.
It's like, man, the people that drive helicopters, fly, not drive, is amazing. Like, just because it's not like a plane, you're like, you can do anything. And just amazing. So that was my first and last helicopter ride. Yeah. So that was a really cool experience, but it was just saying yes to opportunity. And so now I'm in grade 12, ready to graduate, ready to go to Mount A, getting excited about it and the potential of that. And my friend's like, listen, just pause that and say yes to this opportunity. And it was to go to Bible school for 1 year. So I thought about it and I thought, yeah, I could spend 1 year. It wouldn't hurt to learn more about the Bible, get a better foundation, and then go to Mount A. You're going into university, so you want to be strong in your character. And so I thought, hey, that's helpful. So I said yes to that opportunity. And that was kind of the moment that started changing my life and started changing my course. And so I spent 3 years at Bible school. And in that, started realizing who Geoff McLean is. Started realizing who I am as a person, who I am, like personality, where my leadership skill is, what can I work on, where are my weaknesses. I just kind of started understanding who I am. And then God just started just chipping pieces away at me and rebuilding, if you could, and saying, okay, like in ministry, going and pastor, like my first year of Bible school still wasn't on my radar to be a pastor.
Oh, so there's no at that
Nope.
moment. You
Nope.
didn't, okay.
Nope. And so, and my friend was with me. We were roommates together, and like he's never been a pastor. That was never his intent. It was just go and build a healthier foundation. So we did that, and then at the end of the kind of April, school's almost ending, and it was like, oh, am I going back to Mount A? And it just felt like God was like, I know you want to teach, but I'm going to get you to teach differently. And so it reminded me of the disciples that he called them. He's like, you're not going to be fishermen. You're going to be fishers of men. Mm. And it was like they knew what they were doing, and God just kind of just tweaked their purpose. And I felt very much similar to that he said, I know you want to teach, but I'm going to get you to teach about me, not about math or science or something. And so I thought, okay. And so I went back into my second year. So you could do a 1-year program or a 3-year program. So there was this weird, like, okay, if I go back for 2, I'm going back for 3. But if I go for 3, I'm kind of entering this whole, I'm going to be a pastor thing. And I don't know if I really want to do that. But after I finished my first year, I realized I know less now than when I started a year ago. And I don't know if you've ever felt like that.
Every day.
Yeah. I mean, so you and I went to the same Bible school. And so when you went there, did you feel like after the first year, it was, you felt a lot smarter? You're like, man, there's just so much more. I just have no clue.
There was so much stuff. I literally, I went to school not knowing who. I remember we did a church history class. I think I shared this before on Sunday morning. Who, and maybe some people just don't know who he is, but like, there's a guy named Martin Luther, big, reformer and a Christian heritage and history. And I thought for the first bit of our class, we were talking about Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes.
And I was like, this guy looks.
I have a dream.
Yeah, I have a dream. That guy. I was like, this guy looks nothing like this guy. This is from like way back when. He's
that's like money.
Didn't look anything like him. So I realized how much I don't know about even church history, about the Bible. So yeah, I felt the same way. Like I was like getting hit with a fire hydrant of information. So
it's a lot, and the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, and that's kind of with anything in life. And so after the first year, I said, what is next? And kind of like I said, that theme of saying yes to opportunities. I had an opportunity to work at Membership Bible Camp, and this was when it was way up in the middle of nowhere.
I remember like hearing about Membership Bible Camp. Where was this at? Is it no?
So out Renews Highway, McKendrick Lake, and so it's like 45 minutes on a dirt road, and you turn off the dirt road to get to the camp.
Okay, do they have power there?
Yeah, so it was all like generator.
Stop it.
Yep, and satellite phone to call out because there's no phones.
That's not.
Yep, and you would leave your kids there.
No one cared back then. It's like,
nobody cared. If you cared, your kids didn't go. But God always protected the camp, and there was I've never heard any bad stories. And so an opportunity came to be the program director at Membership Bible Camp after my first year of Bible school, and I was like, we've talked about this before, but it was like this, but this identity crisis that I was like, that's not something that I can do, because I've never done it before. And God was like, I got you, but he put a good mentor in my life that said, I got you. We're going to do this together. And so that was a pivotal part to kind of say, hey, I want you to lead now, and I want you to lead kids, and I want you to show that you can do this. And so I was a program director at Membership Bible Camp for a year, and then went back to Bible school. And through that time, got to know what is now my wife, who is now my wife. And she was at Bible school at the same time. She was there the first year. And probably it's a story for another podcast when my wife's on the podcast, so I don't want to spoil any of those stories. But yeah, she went the same year I did, and so we got to know each other. My best friend and her best friend actually got together, and they were the ones that actually set us up. So be careful of the friends that you have.
It's true.
More of the story. And so, yeah, so I went, did Bible camp, went back second year of Bible school. And in that, God was just starting to I started coming into my own. I started going, okay, I know who I am. I know what gift sets I have. I started getting excited about opportunity and going, this is really good. But I don't know if being a pastor was still really loud on my radar in my second year. And so fast forward, graduate second year, opportunity come up. Hey, we love you being at Membership Bible Camp. Would you come back and do the summer for year 2? And I was like, yeah, I probably could do that. I don't want to work at, a store or something like that. So, and I think I have something that I've learned that I can offer. So God, again, was just giving me another opportunity to sharpen some skills, teaching kids, running, programs and leading people.
You no longer have an imposter syndrome kind of thing.
Imposter syndrome, exactly. And so I was like, no, I can do this. And so, yeah, so I leaned into that, went back to Bible school my third year. And in that situation, I felt really comfortable. Like, I love this. I know where I'm supposed to be. And going to school and going to Mount A just never came across my mind again. It was just like, it was like, no, that got you to go into a lane. But
what were your parents saying during this time? Were they expecting you to be a teacher? Yeah. Was there encouragement either way? Or?
I think it was a mixture of both. My parents never went to Bible school or anything like that. And so it was like, whatever you're going to do, make sure it counts and make sure you go, but supportive in enough way to be able to say, we're here to back you up and help and financially and all of that stuff. And so they've been great with that. But it was an unknown world to them. So it was like, okay, if that's what you think, then lean into it. But it was always like, what's your backup plan? So fast forward, go to year 3. And as I'm going year 3, all of a sudden it becomes real that the end is near, that when the third year's over, what are you going to do?
What's next? Yeah.
And so that's where an opportunity came up where it was like, okay, what am I going to do? A mentor of mine, Bruce Steves, who was working at Rosse Baptist Church, where my wife's home church is. Right? And so it was like, hey, graduate 3. I was like, I don't want to go back to Membership Bible Camp. I feel like I've done that. I'm going to move on to something else. And so Bruce was like, why don't you come and work with me for the summer in youth ministry and, helping with teens and doing camps. And I was like, that's kind of neat. And being part of a local church now, really being part of a local church with 3 years behind me in Bible school. So I was like, okay, let's do that. So I did that and I was like, okay, what's happening? Meanwhile, at the end of that summer, my wife and I get married in August and then start, okay, what's next? Now it's not just me, it's my wife and I. And so it was like, well, I don't know if ministry's going to be a thing, but it could be. And it was then throughout the summer that God put different people around my life to say, you could be a pastor. You should be a pastor. I could see that happening for you. And having people affirm me and affirm my calling. And that was really important, not just what I thought, because I took time praying and took time asking God, is this the direction you want? But when you have people around you that can, what I say, breathe life into you, right? That lifts you up and knows who you are and knows your gifts and abilities and your weaknesses. I had people giving me opportunity, not just throwing me in the deep, but saying, well, let's see how you do over here and let's see how you do over here. So after the summer was over, we spent 10 months at Rosse. I worked at the Christian school as their program director over their kids ministry, which was the coolest job because it was overseeing after-school childcare. But we came up with some of the craziest ideas and concerts and all of that stuff. And so it was like VBS every day. It was amazing. But through that time, that allowed me to serve at Rosse and serve, helping co-lead the Sunday school and put on, the opening, helping with prayer meeting and leading that, helping with the WANA program, helping with youth group, putting a band together and jamming out and doing some stuff for different concerts. So I just said yes to a lot of opportunities. and grew a lot of skills. And God was just preparing me for what was to come. 10 months later, after my wife and I got married and being at Rosse, I was in a theater production, a church theater production, and we were doing, and I was ready, P.T. Barnum.
P.T. Barnum.
Yep, I was the flea circus ringmaster.
So good.
And I had to convince people that the fleas were actually there doing all these jumps and stuff and interacting with the crowd, and put one in a cannon and shot in this lady's hair. And it was a blast, but it was part of this kind of theater production, like a dinner theater. And so really, really fun. Never did it. Theater's not my thing. It's my daughter's thing. But I was like, yeah, I say yes to an opportunity. And so in that, there was a guy looking on behalf of a church in Nova Scotia for an associate pastor, oversee kids ministry and youth ministry, and an amazing church. And so we sat down, my wife and I, with them, and then eventually started talking to this church.
How old are you at this time?
2021. Yeah. Yeah. And so this would have been 2003 going into 2004. And so we were having these conversations. It was like, okay. And I kept looking at my wife like, is this what we want to do? Like, or is this what you want to do? Is this what I want to do? Is this what God's asking us to do? And God just opened the doors, and we kept saying, open the doors. And he kept doing that and having people kind of back us and say, hey, this is the right direction. So yeah, in 2004 in July, we said yes to an opportunity to work at Great Village at Faith Baptist Church down in Nova Scotia, and spent 10 years there as the associate pastor, overseeing kids and youth ministry, along with, the band and website and tech and lots of fun stuff and a lot of cool, amazing moments that God did through that ministry there that I got to be part of. That's where our kids were born, in Truro, Nova Scotia. And so that was kind of my calling as a pastor, and a little bit of that journey to lead me up to saying, I never said, hey, I'm going to be a pastor. God was just like, I'm going to build you up. I love Lego and building. And God's like, you don't know what I'm going to build, but just one brick at a time. And next thing you know, it was like, you're ready to go. And I'm like, oh, okay. And saying yes to opportunity, I would say would be a little bit of that.
Yeah, I love that. I love seeing, hearing stories like that where you're not sure where you're going.
Nope.
You don't know. You're just being obedient to God, just being open, saying yes to different opportunities, stuff you're very much like that. Kids are very much like that,
Yep.
And so that's obviously where you're at today. And obviously through that you came here and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But that's a great story. And there's a lot of intersecting things with the same school, same church where I was at.
Give us a little bit of your story, because I would love for you to share a little bit of your journey of becoming a pastor and see if it's different than mine.
I knew exactly I wanted to be a pastor. No, it's true though. Like when I was 11 years old, I was at Hand Bible Camp. That's where I went to camp. I spent all my summers there from age 11 all the way up to, second, third year in university. I was there every single summer doing, I'm sure it was different times of being pots of pan boy. That's where I met my wife at camp. My wife, Carrie, I did pots of pans. And
She said, man, that guy.
She's like, that's
the top tier pots and pan guy.
7.
Now, and fun fact for the people listening and watching, once I became a pastor there, I had an opportunity to be a chapel speaker at Hampton Bible Camp for X number of years.
So many intersecting moments.
Super cool.
So when I was 11 years old, I had a cabin leader. His name was Amos Mercier. And he was going to Bible school that fall. He was going to MBBI. So the only school I ever heard about Bible school, because it wasn't a normal thing to hear about, was New Brunswick Bible Institute. That's the only school. And so I was like, oh, that's an interesting thing to do. But during my middle school years, high school thing, I didn't have any other desire other than being a youth pastor. I think it was because, being involved in church growing up, whether it was Christian Service Brigade, until I was in, middle school, I started going to youth group. My youth pastors were heavily influenced in my life. I had a few. Tim Johnson was my first one. He was a great guy. And Gavin McCombie was the one who spent the most time with me. And he's someone who meant a lot to me. And he built into me. He gave me opportunities to lead devotionals at youth group. I came on as a summer student. That's probably when I had the full calling, I felt like, is when I was about 16, 17, where I knew for sure, okay, I want to do pastoring, youth pastoring. Was as a summer student, he brought me on. He's like, all right, I'm going on vacation. You got youth group for the next 2 weeks. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm like 16, 17 years old. He's like, no, you're good, man. You got this. And I remember being like a little bit overwhelmed at first, but it was really cool to have, be in charge of those kids that were, younger than me. And some of them were only a couple of years younger than me too. but it was just a blast being there and being a part of a team and seeing teens and young kids come to Christ and like seeing them grow in their faith. And near the end of the summer, we were in a staff meeting. I was as a summer student, and they were doing like the preaching schedule for like the fall or whatever it was. They're like, I was there with the pastors, and I think might have been a couple elders. Like, all right, who's got, I don't know the exact date. It might be like August something. I was like, oh yeah, I'll do it as a joke. Like, okay, Nate, you got it. And like they penciled me in, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna preach on Sunday morning.
Got
Like
real.
17 I did. It got real because I was just joking because I'm classy lamb.
07?
Not taking me seriously.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, you guys, Nate, you do it. And then my youth pastor worked with me on my message. I talked about having a plank in your eye, and I remember I got to the point I didn't take it. I took it seriously as I could, but I remember a guy literally had to leave the auditorium because he was laughing so hard. Like he had to like just walk out of the auditorium. And like I bumped into Gavin since, and he still remembers the sermon on people
There you go.
too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But for me, that's when I was like, okay, no, I love teaching. I love, I wasn't the best in school, but I could get in front of a class no problem, give speeches and stuff. That's the one thing I could do well. So I was like, oh, I could probably do this for a small part of the job. But I was like, that would be exciting to do.
Yep.
So I went to MBVI.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bunch of us from Bible camp. I think there's 8 of us. 7 or 8 of us from Hampton Bible Camp. We all came. All went through every year. We went through, graduated.
And did 3 years.
I did 3 years. So I said 4. I hurt my back, I think, in my summer of my junior year. So I didn't go back in the fall. So I missed the fall. So I didn't graduate with my friend at the same time.
Yeah.
So that was a big bummer near the end. Like, Jeff Schwartzentruber and
that's right.
like those guys, they all graduated. And
So a little side note. So Jeff Schwartzentruber went with you, who was on staff here. Yeah. Josh Fillmore went with you, who now is lead pastor at the church I just said I was at for 10 years. So many crazy connections.
Yeah. And so like going to Bible school, my intention was to be youth pastor. That's what I was going for. I was just like, no, I want to be that guy for the youth and be the person who, Gavin was to me, to other youth and stuff. But I graduated, half a year too late.
Oh, I thought you were going to say class clown.
No, I did not. No, I graduated half a year later than everybody else, and so everyone else was getting youth pastor jobs. They're all moving on, getting their jobs or becoming different pastor positions, and I was left going back to school in the fall, right? So like I got a half a semester, basically the fall, to finish up schooling, then figure out what I'm going to do. By this time, I got married to my wife Carrie. After I graduated, and then I'm left going, what am I going to do? We had planned my last senior year to go to Korea to teach English as a language. So we did all of our, the courses that we had to do, or like our Carrie did. I guess I didn't. I'll get to that in a second. But they had to wait till we graduated to send off our degrees and all that. That's all you need is just a degree.
Proof of it. Yep.
Proof of the degree. So, but we're spending the whole time as a married couple. I'm working at a call center.
Yeah.
Working for Bell Mobility, getting yelled at, every day.
Incoming calls.
Hours. Incoming calls for cell phone bills. Like that's,
Side note, craziest story. Was that the...
Yeah, it wasn't my call, but someone got a bill for $60,000.
$60,000. And was this the one they were on a boat?
They were on a boat, cruise ship, watching
the hockey Stanley Cup finals.
Overseas.
And they're streaming it.
They're using data. And so I think they talked it down to $5,000. I think
$60,000 down to $5,000 for...
Yeah. Like I most times when you get people with their bills over, you're supposed to like offer them discounts on their price plans for the next month. I hated doing that. I was like, I don't just give money back. I'd always get in trouble for it. But I get your money back. I don't, whatever. So I did that.
I had a pastor's heart.
Yeah, I did that for I think it was 10 months. I think it was working for Bell Mobility. It was awful.
Would you ever do it again?
No, never. I would get a sick feel in my stomach.
Yep.
Going by Parkway Mall in St. John, because that's where I would work. It took me a while to get over it. But I remember when I'm getting ready to go to Korea, and we're just waiting, blah, blah. But during that time, when I was doing my 4th year, I guess before this, I was doing my 4th year and an internship at Hampton Baptist. That's kind of where I was doing schooling, internship, youth pastoring. And there was a pastor came at one of the meetings who was at Rossi Baptist, and he was telling us that he was leaving his job at Rossi Baptist, which is my home church. I hadn't been there since I was a kid. He was leaving to go be a pastor in Ontario. And at that moment, I remember as clear as day, that God was saying, you're going to be there. Your plans are going to fall through.
Yeah.
And you're going to be a pastor at Rossi Baptist Church. Like, no, number one, I didn't want to be a kid because it was a kids pastor. I'm like, I don't want to be.
And you had a youth
I'm a youth pastor
Yeah.
thing. I'm on a youth track. It was at Rossi Baptist, which I didn't want to go to.
Yeah.
We didn't leave on the best terms. I think it was
Yeah.
different issues, stuff like that. I was like, I don't want to be there. I'm going to Korea to teach English.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to get paid. We get paid I think it's like $25,000. That's all in your pocket. Everything else is paid for. So I'm going to do this. It'd be great. Then do whatever.
Yep.
But I felt in that moment I was going to be at Rossi Baptist.
Yeah.
Just from that one moment.
Something was stirring.
I was like, I don't want to do it. But then, so a few months later, after I graduate and stuff like that, I got a phone call from the people that were going to do teaching English as a second language, and they told us that our plans fell through. And it's how we had moved into Carrie's parents' house. We sold all of our stuff because we're saving money. We're moving in there. We sold all our furniture, sold everything. Moved back into her childhood home. We're living, we're married, but we're sleeping in her childhood bedroom and all this stuff. And I got the phone call and I just hung up, and I was just like, I'm gonna be a pastor at this church. That's what I felt like. And this was months after I had that feeling.
Okay.
And told Carrie, and it was
wow.
stung because that was our whole plan. She was going with us. Then a week later, the pastor at Rossi Baptist came and called and said, "Hey, Nate, I've been thinking about you. I mentioned your name about being kids pastor and looking to meet with you."
Yep.
I told him I don't want to do it. I want to be youth pastor. I don't want to do kids pastor. I don't want to see it as like stepping stools, something else. But he said, just pray about it. And so I met with them. I was like, "Oh, I'll do it." And I spent 7 years there, and it was great, man. Just seeing some kids growing from babies up to, some of them were 7 by the time I left, and I saw some kids now I've got kids who are I call them my first class, who are in grade 4 or 5. They're now getting married.
Wow,
which is crazy. I feel super old.
Yeah.
So being kids pastor was an amazing experience.
Yes. Yeah.
Being there and just helping the Awana program, growing that Sunday mornings and stuff. During that time, I met you at one of the youth event, and you mentored me and stuff like that, which was awesome. Yep. Just learning from that, and I got to a point where I had reached kind of like my ceiling of
what you've learned.
I learned a lot there. Like there was stuff, but I was like, man, there's more to learn.
You had a hunger to, go to the next stage.
Then I ended up moving up here to Miramichi with my family.
And because when I came in 2014 to the Point Church, it was 2019, and we were kind of looking for somebody. I think Christmas time, 2018, and I was like, man, I wonder if Nate wants to be a children's pastor. Not knowing that you really want to be a youth pastor, but I knew that you were doing Kidsmen with your team. You put in a slide in the church.
Yeah, that was one of the things I did. I was pumped. We cut out a hole in the top floor.
Yeah.
And we put in this porthole because we wanted to make it look like a submarine thing. So basically, literally, I had someone weld a
oh, no way.
You open it up, and kids could slide down the slide, go down into their down the hallway to their classrooms.
Yes.
I need to do that. I hired a couple from Alberta came and moved, and they worked for MGM Studios. So they built a lot of props and stuff, more like Disney World and Universal, stuff like that. So they built, they fiberglass, made it like a monkey and giraffes and trees. They redecorated the rooms.
Nice.
Great, amazing couple. Yeah. Chuck and Aaliyah, they're an amazing couple and stuff.
I love that. God puts the people around you to allow you to do what you need to do. But I remember that, and I was like, dude, you got a slide. How cool is that? And kids are excited. They're like, this is my church, and telling their friends about that.
Yeah, it was really cool.
And when I came in 2014 to the Point Church, one of the rooms they had similar kind of idea, but not a slide. They built a pirate ship.
That's so good, man.
Right? And I was like, you guys have a pirate ship as your elementary class? Like, that's just amazing. And it showed me that they love kids ministry. And so I was excited to kind of jump into that. And as a pastor, I think you felt this. I know I felt this, is you grow up and you have certain people you look at. So no matter what job you have, you're looking at people that are doing the job that you might be doing. You're like, is that how I'm supposed to do it? And you're kind of comparing game a little bit. And as a pastor, I was like, am I supposed to be that type of pastor? Am I supposed to be that type of pastor? And I remember one person said to me, Geoff, the type of pastor you're supposed to be is the one that God made you to be. Stop trying to be like, there's no book that says this is what a pastor is. There's qualifications, and expectations. But as far as what God has designed me personality-wise and approach, and so one of my things I love doing is invention. I love creating ideas and coming up with opportunities to just think outside the box, because I think God has given me imagination, so God must have the craziest imagination, and obviously he does. When he created the world, look what he's created. And so I just love looking at kids ministry and creating some crazy moments. And over COVID, you and I really got to partner in kids ministry
That
at
was
the
a
Point
blast,
Church.
man.
That was crazy. We did a thing called the So-So Show. And we just said, we have kids at home we can connect with, so we're going to connect on their couches via video. And so we came up with the So-So Show. Wasn't that great? Wasn't bad. It was so-so. And so we just called it what it was.
Yeah.
But it was you and I working together, which was a really cool moment. And just having some fun with kids, learning about faith, but in a kind of America's Funniest Videos kind of thing. And man, like we made the most of that. And that's what I love about being a pastor is caring for people, but letting God let me think way outside the box and saying, how can we care for people? And you share that.
Yeah, I
that
think
creativity.
what's been really, and I've loved working here. One of the things I love working the most is like this place is literally a sandbox. You know what I mean? Like this place is like you're free to do whatever you want. You mess up, then that's fine. You should like take the dust off your sandals and do something else, right? Like, and that's why I appreciate and love. Like we're able to do so many different things without any sense of like judgment. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, I'd be nervous to do it at other places potentially, but like it was really encouraging and exciting to do some of that stuff here. And I think that's what excites me about being a youth pastor now, right? Because like now I'm on that youth pastor, right? Yeah. Like,
now you're a youth pastor.
Like coming out of COVID, there was the need for looking for a youth pastor. I remember I even interviewed someone to be a youth pastor to come on. And I was like, but then Pastor Kevin, lead pastor, was here a little bit ago. He offered the job as youth pastor. I was like, you know what? I think this is something I can do because I was overseeing kids ministry. I was missing out on that teaching element, and to come in and to we had Isaac McKinnis who was doing an amazing job coming out of COVID. And it was hard, man, doing youth ministry and COVID can't meet and all that stuff. And finally, the restrictions were lowered, and I jumped in and we saw some really cool things happen. I keep seeing memories showing up on Facebook of just like 3 years ago. Like we just had our Easter event memory pop up. We had 40 kids come. It was one of our biggest nights we had. It was so exciting for that to happen. And then last night we had like 87. We've had up to 120 kids at 180, right? So it's so exciting to see, God doing some cool things. I think kids are genuinely really excited about coming to youth group, and we've started doing this shift from it's not just a youth group, but it's actually like a third service now, right? And we're having small groups. In the past, we've had small groups be a part of the night, but now we have it as like almost like a sign up for it, right? Like youth groups done at 8:00. You can sign up for small groups, and we're seeing cool things happen there, man. People taking great steps to not just discover God, but to own their faith, right? They're, and I have some of the best leaders like I've ever had in ministry before who are jumping in.
If you're going to own your faith and somebody says, you need to do this, that's not owning it, right? And so as a church, as adults, we say, hey, if you want to get in a small group and have these conversations, that's your choice. And that's part of taking that ownership. And so when you made that switch for the teens to make that choice, those that want to be there now want to be there.
It's night and day. Then we're seeing like leaders showing for like volleyball games. We've got students that are coming with like, hey, Easter's coming up. I think it was Easter's coming up. I found this really cool devotional for the week that we can do on the Bible app. Can we do that together? Like they're coming together, a group online doing Bible studies together. I'm like, this is so awesome. Because we just have a vast number of kids from all different spectrums of every aspect of life. And so it's been cool to see the kids who like, if I was growing up one of those schools, these kids wouldn't have come to my youth group, right? Like, but we're reaching kids that are like, they're coming. Like they'll bear with me, talk with them for like 15 minutes, but they're coming and stuff like that. And they're hearing every Tuesday, a small nugget of truth that I'm hoping and praying that they're hiding away, and they'll remember that there's some adults here that love them, care for them, show Jesus' love. And so for me, biggest part about being a pastor is seeing life being changed, right? And letting people know that there's a God that loves them. No matter what. Like some of these kids have messed up. I've messed up. You've messed up. But always know that there's a Father in heaven, right, who is there to welcome them back. One who's not gonna, hide his head away from them. But
here's a crazy thought. Somebody and a few people were that example to you. Have it ever crossed your mind that now you're an example for somebody else that's going to sit in a podcast one day and tell about how Nate Bartlett had that impact on their life?
You overwhelm her. And I say that only because I've bumped into kids who at Bible camp who I had an influence on. And it wasn't a positive influence. Like it was like I had said something to them when they were a kid, when they were like 8 years old. Like, man, I remember that time at Bible camp when you rigged that foosball tournament, man, and I'm still mad with them. Like, you're 18 now. Like, chill out. But so it's allowed me to go, every word I say, every action I take, it's going to matter to these kids. So that it's allowed me from those moments being like, okay, what am I saying to these kids? And how hard am I being on them? Am I being hard on them for a right reason and stuff like that too? But still showing grace to them, still showing love to them. But,
Yep.
but yeah, that
what it
to
is.
me is an overwhelming thing because I've heard stories in the past where people have talked about when I was at Bible school and stuff like that about
Yeah.
kids clubs and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, well, and time will tell, right? For me, one of the things like I just absolutely love about being a pastor is seeing people connect, grow in their faith for sure, but just like watching people like really grow in their faith right in front of you, but having a relationship with them in the way that like I love watching families do this, and I love when families grow together. And so as of last week, okay, there's this little girl, amazing little girl, and she is doing some homework. And so she wanted to send me a picture of her homework and show me how amazing it was. And I love that we can get into the world. We're not as pastors, we're not just like teaching and go home. Like there's doing life together and connecting with people and being in each other's lives and caring for them. And so that's neat. So when kids share part of their life with you, you go, okay, so I'm making an impact in your life. And so that person that you looked up to, you have a group of people that are coming up and looking at you, looking at me, and realize there's a responsibility to that. And so if I can point people, maybe they might go to school to be an educator, and maybe they'll go to Bible school, and so you never know. And our impact and our influence, our words, our actions, how much we care, like we make a difference. And I recognize that responsibility and that influence. I cherish it, but I also know that I want to do well. Right. And so I get excited about this, and I never thought one day I'd ever be a lead pastor, but here I am.
Here you are.
Never thought I'd be a pastor, let alone a lead pastor. That's just for people that are close to retirement that would do that. That's what I would have thought when I was young. So you talked about your very, very first sermon, and do you think the sermons you preach now, they're pretty much the same quality, or do you think you've grown a ton?
I'm hoping they've grown. I'm hoping they're a little bit better. I do realize and recognize that I think sometimes people don't remember my opening illustration, whether it's Class Clown 07, Class Clown 0, or it's like random things. But I'm hoping that they've done it, because one thing I've learned to do is preach without notes. That's one thing I do. I know I do have slides and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's one thing for me.
Some
cues that remind me, and for me, that's allowed me to be, I feel like, a little bit more engaging, where I'm not stuck behind my notes or in my pew, where I can be a little bit more authentic with what I'm saying. It's tricky doing two services. I will say that it is tricky doing two services,
because you feel like you're regurgitating or you're not being authentic because you're repeating it.
There is that little bit of that competing, because like there are times where like I do have those moments where like, did I already say this? Number one, because if I don't have my notes, I don't know where I'm at in my notes. And number two, it's like I want to be authentic. I want to make sure that I'm saying the same thing. So I do get a little bit tricky on those things. So
it's funny to watch how you grow. It's a double-edged sword for you, because you're like, that's something I want to do, but then people are like, man, he's amazing. How does he say all that stuff? And then they look at me and like, well, you don't do that. And I'm like, come on, Nate.
Come on, guys.
Like, you set me up. And but it's amazing to watch how far we have grown and how far we'll grow. My very first sermon at Bible school, I remember parts of it, and I go, oh, I was a creative person back then, because I thought it was funny that I talked about how God has a garden and how that garden impacts us. And it sounds good until I explained how corny I took the approach, that he, in his garden, there's time, THYME, right? And how we spend our time, and let us be gracious, and let us encourage one another. It was so corny, and I was like, this is the most creative thing ever. And
did it go bad?
Yeah, no, everybody, no, it was fun, because everybody kept wondering what was next in the garden. And so, and I can't remember all the stuff that was in it, but it was catchy. People were like, that was clever. But now my kids would say it's just corny. And it's clever turned to corny.
It was corny.
Yeah. There you go. Exactly. Dad joke.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to see how far we grew. My first then official message that I did up at Little Southwest Baptist Church, I would have been still in Bible school, and I don't think it was good at all. But I had some really, really sweet ladies come up to me and just say,
so good, dear.
You did so well. It was so great. We appreciated you being up there. And I'm like, I couldn't tell you what I spoke on. I couldn't tell you anything. I just know that I was nervous. I was scared, because it wasn't a strong suit of mine. I was like, that's something I'll never really use. And here I am doing a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah. But God the lesson is you say yes to opportunity. For me, that's been my story. My story has been say yes to opportunity that matters. Say yes, that's moving my story down the road, even when it's beyond me, even if it's when something I've never done before. I learn new skills, I learn new habits, and it's put me in a place today doing what I'm doing and what I love doing and seeing the impact because I just keep saying yes to the right opportunities, I hope.
Yeah.
And so why become a pastor? Didn't know it day one, but you kept just taking steps. And my grandfather worked at Heath Steel Mines. And one of the illustrations that I've used in my sermons a long time is in the mine, you would have a hat on, a helmet on, and it would only reveal kind of the next pillar in the mine, holding up the mine shaft. But when you got to that pillar, it would reveal the next one. And when you got to the next one, it would reveal, you couldn't see down the mine shaft all of the way. And I think that was a fitting thing for my whole life, saying, I don't know what God has for me, but I can see the next pillar. I can see that next step, and my responsibility is to take that step. And when I get there, I believe God reveals the next step.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
and
very much how I feel.
Yeah, it just gave me freedom to say, I don't know what the plan is, but I do know that's the right next step.
Yeah.
And we would just take the step, and then God will reveal my plans, as he talks about. Lots of it are just trust in the Lord, and he will make your path straight. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to trust in him, and he guides me. And so that's been it. So this has been fun. Thanks for letting me share some of the story.
Jumping in, and it's a little bit different having you on the podcast, but it reminds me that you do belong, Pastor Geoff.
Thanks for letting me know.
No, but thank you again just for reminding us that everybody has a name, and everybody has a story, and every story matters to God, and just for giving me that opportunity too to share my story a little bit. I feel like we could talk for hours and hours on the stuff. We talk a lot, but it is just a great reminder that just how much God was intertwining your story and tweaking and showing you that next step, that next pillar in your life to bring you where you are today as the lead pastor at the Point Church.
Thanks.